Hi everyone, my name is Margaret. Before I begin, please make sure you subscribe to the channel, like this video, and tell me in the comments, where are you watching from? Because today's story, it's not an easy one to share. It's the kind of pain only a mother can understand. The day my son told me to stop visiting his house, I felt something inside me break, quietly, like a thread snapping after years of holding too much weight. It wasn't anger that filled me. It was disbelief. How could the same boy who once ran into my arms after every scraped knee now look at me like I was a burden? I stood at his doorstep, holding a box of homemade apple pie, his favorite. The same recipe I used to bake when he was little and we couldn't afford birthday cakes. But that day, he didn't even look at it. He just said, "Mom, Sophie doesn't feel comfortable when you come unannounced. Please stop visiting so often." I remember smiling, pretending it didn't hurt, but my hands trembled so badly, I almost dropped the box. When I walked away from that door, I realized sometimes love doesn't fade because of time or distance. Sometimes it's pushed away by the very people we gave our hearts to. And that was the day I learned a mother's silence can scream louder than any argument ever could. People often say mothers are born the moment their child takes their first breath. But for me, I think I became a mother the day I realized no one else would fight for my son's future except me. When Daniel was born, his father held him once, kissed me on the forehead, and said he'd try to be there. He never did. By the time Daniel turned 5, his father was gone, leaving behind only unpaid bills and broken promises. I was 28, with no degree, no family to fall back on, and a little boy who looked at me like I was his whole world. And maybe that's why I never gave up, because he believed in me before I even believed in myself. I worked morning shifts at a grocery store, stacking shelves, packing bags, smiling through exhaustion. At night, I cleaned offices, pushing mops across shiny floors while others slept peacefully in their warm homes. There were nights when I came home so tired I could barely stand. But then I'd peek into Daniel's room. He'd be fast asleep, holding his little teddy bear, and suddenly, every ache disappeared. I'd whisper, "Someday, baby, all this will be worth it." We lived in a small apartment that smelled of detergent and hope. The walls were thin, but our bond was unbreakable. Every Sunday, I'd make pancakes shaped like hearts, and Daniel would say, "Mom, when I grow up, I'll buy you a big house. You won't have to work anymore." I'd laugh and tell him, "Just promise me you'll be kind, Daniel. That's all I want." And he was kind.
So Kind.
He shared his lunch with kids who didn't have any, helped me carry groceries up the stairs, and wrote me little notes saying, "You're the best mom in the world." When he got accepted into university, I remember sitting on the kitchen floor, holding the letter, and crying like a child. I thought of every long night, every meal skipped so he could have enough, every moment I doubted myself, and realized it was all worth it. He was the first in our family to go to college. I sold my only gold bracelet to help pay for his books. I didn't even think twice, because when you're a mother, sacrifice doesn't feel like loss. It feels like love. Daniel used to call me every evening during his college years. He'd say, "Mom, I miss your cooking. Can you come visit next weekend?" And I always did, no matter how tired I was, no matter how far it was. Back then, I believed nothing could ever come between us. He was my reason, my pride, my proof that I had done something right in this world. But life has a cruel way of testing even the purest love. And soon, I would learn that the very boy I raised to be kind would ask me to stay away. It was a quiet Sunday afternoon when Daniel called and said, "Mom, I want you to meet someone special." I remember the excitement in his voice, that warmth that used to fill my heart every time he called me Mom. I spent the whole morning preparing his favorite meal, baked chicken with rosemary and mashed potatoes. I even pulled out the floral tablecloth I kept for special occasions. After all, meeting the woman who made my son's heart light up, that was special. When they finally arrived, I heard their laughter before they reached the door. My heart fluttered. And then I saw her, Sophie. She was stunning. in a way that felt almost unreal. Perfect hair, perfect posture, the kind of beauty that turned heads in every room. I wiped my hands nervously on my apron and smiled. "Welcome, sweetheart. I've heard so much about you." She smiled politely, a small, practiced curve of her lips that didn't quite reach her eyes. Her tone was soft but distant. "Nice to meet you, Mrs. Collins," she said, looking around the small apartment like she was assessing it. I offered them seats, poured juice, and tried to make conversation. "So, Sophie, where did you and Daniel meet?" "At work," she replied shortly, sipping her drink. Her eyes darted toward Daniel every few seconds, as if waiting for him to step in. Daniel, bless his heart, tried to fill in the silence. "Mom, Sophie's a marketing executive. She's been doing great. She just got promoted." I clapped my hands together. "That's wonderful, dear. You must be so proud of yourself." She nodded slightly. "I am." Something about her confidence was admirable, but there was also a wall there. A subtle coldness I couldn't quite name. Still, I told myself, she's just shy, Margaret. Don't start judging. After dinner, I served dessert, apple crumble, Daniel's childhood favorite. As soon as I placed it on the table, he smiled. "Oh, Mom, this takes me back." But Sophie barely touched hers. She looked at the plate, then at Daniel, and said softly, "You really like sweet things, don't you?" Her tone wasn't teasing. It was sharp, like she was judging his comfort with me. After they left, I stood by the door for a long time. The apartment felt emptier than usual. I should have been happy. My son was building a life, moving forward. But something about that meeting unsettled me. It wasn't jealousy. It was something deeper, an instinct. That quiet voice inside every mother that whispers when something isn't right. I brushed it aside, convincing myself I was overthinking. But deep down I knew, that polite smile, that distant look, it was only the beginning of something I wasn't prepared for. And soon that something would change everything between me and my son. It had been almost 2 months since I last saw Daniel and Sophie. 2 months and not a single visit, not even a proper phone call. Our conversations had turned shorter, colder. Every time I'd ask, "When can I come see you, sweetheart?" Daniel would say, "Soon, Mom. We've just been really busy." I told myself to be patient. He was married now, settling into a new life. I didn't want to be the overbearing mother who couldn't let go. But one Sunday morning, I woke up with a heavy feeling in my chest, a mother's instinct that whispered, "He needs me." So, I baked his favorite, an apple pie, the same recipe I'd made on his first day of school, every birthday, every homecoming. I wrapped it neatly in foil, wore my best sweater, and took the bus across town to their new neighborhood. When I reached their house, I was in awe. It was beautiful, a big white house with a trimmed garden, a porch swing, and polished windows that glistened in the sunlight. My son had done well for himself, and my heart swelled with pride. I rang the doorbell, smiling from ear to ear, clutching the warm pie in my hands. After a few seconds, Sophie opened the door. Her expression froze. "Oh, hi," she said, her voice flat. "Daniel didn't tell me you were coming." I laughed softly, trying to ease the tension. I just wanted to surprise him. I made his favorite pie. She hesitated before stepping aside. "Right, well, come in." The air inside the house felt cold, not from the temperature, but from something unseen. Everything looked perfect, the furniture, the decor, even the way the cushions were placed, but it didn't feel like home. Daniel came out from the living room, his face lighting up for a brief second before shifting into discomfort. "Mom, you should have called first," he said gently. I smiled, pretending not to notice the unease in his tone. "I just missed you, that's all. I thought I'd bring you some of your favorite pie." I placed it on the counter, and for a moment, silence filled the room. Sophie crossed her arms, watching me. When I tried to compliment the house, she just said, "Thank you. I like keeping things in order." Her eyes lingered on the crumbs that fell from the pie plate, as if even that small mess bothered her. I stayed for a short while, talking mostly to Daniel while Sophie scrolled through her phone. Every time I laughed or touched Daniel's arm, I could feel her gaze, cold, sharp, disapproving. When I finally said goodbye, Daniel hugged me lightly. Not the warm, tight hug I remembered.
Just polite.
As I walked down their driveway, the pie smell still clinging to my hands, I realized something painful. For the first time in my life, I felt like a guest in my own son's world. A week after that awkward visit, Daniel called. "Mom, Sophie and I would love to have you over for dinner next weekend," he said, his tone light but careful. My heart leaped. Maybe I'd been wrong. Maybe Sophie was warming up to me. I spent the whole week looking forward to it, telling my neighbor, Mrs. Turner, "See? Things are getting better between us." I even bought a small bouquet of lilies. Sophie seemed like the kind of woman who'd appreciate elegant flowers. That Saturday, I put on my best blue dress, the one Daniel always said made me look young and classy. I spent extra time on my hair, wanting everything to be perfect. I didn't want Sophie to see me as just an old woman. I wanted her to see the mother who raised the man she loved. When I arrived, the house looked warm and inviting, candles flickering in the dining room. Sophie greeted me with a smile, practiced, polite, and brief.
"Come in," she said.
"Dinner's ready." Daniel looked handsome, dressed neatly in a white shirt, but there was tension in his eyes, the kind I used to notice when he was nervous before a school exam. Still, I brushed it off. "You both look wonderful," I said cheerfully. The table was beautifully set, fine plates, silver cutlery, and a wine glass at every seat. I handed Sophie the bouquet. "These are for you, dear." She accepted them, though her smile faltered when she realized they weren't expensive roses. "Oh, lilies. Thank you." Throughout dinner, I tried to make conversation, asking about their work, their plans, their favorite places to visit. But every time I asked Daniel something, Sophie would answer first. And when I laughed too loudly at one of Daniel's childhood stories, she frowned slightly, as if my presence disrupted her rhythm. Then came the moment that pierced through me like a knife. I complimented their home, the elegant furniture, the color scheme, and said, "You've both built such a beautiful life. I'm so proud of you, Daniel." Sophie looked up from her plate, her tone sweet but sharp enough to cut glass. "Well, we both work very hard for it," she said. "It's not like things were just handed to us." I froze for a moment. I knew what she meant. She didn't have to say it directly. The undertone was clear. She wanted to remind me that I didn't belong in this picture-perfect world they'd built. Daniel went quiet. He didn't defend me. He just looked down, pretending to cut his steak. The rest of the meal passed in silence. When I left that night, I stood outside their house for a long moment, clutching my coat against the cold wind. And I realized something I'd never wanted to admit. I wasn't just losing my son to his wife. I was losing him to a world where there was no room for me anymore. It happened on a Tuesday morning, ordinary, uneventful, almost painfully quiet. I was folding laundry when I heard a knock at the door. When I opened it, Daniel was standing there. For a second, my heart leapt. I thought maybe he'd come to surprise me, like he used to when he'd stop by after work, holding takeout and saying, "Mom, I missed your cooking." But that day, there was no smile.
No takeout bag. No worms.
He looked tired, like he hadn't slept well. His eyes darted to the floor, avoiding mine. "Daniel," I said softly, "is everything okay?" He took a deep breath. "Mom, can we talk?" We sat down on the old sofa, the same one where he'd spent countless evenings watching cartoons as a boy. He stared at his hands, fidgeting with his wedding ring, before finally speaking. "Mom," he began, "Sophie's been feeling uncomfortable lately." I frowned. "Uncomfortable?
Why?
Did I do something wrong?" He sighed, rubbing the back of his neck. "It's not that. She feels like you come over too often. It's hard for her to relax when you're around. She thinks we need some space." For a few seconds, I didn't speak. His words hung in the air, heavy, cold, final. "Too often," I repeated, trying to keep my voice steady. "Daniel, I've only been there twice in the last 3 months." He looked up then, guilt flickering in his eyes. I know, Mom. It's not about the number of times. It's just she wants to have her own space. Her own home. I forced a smile, though I could feel my throat tightening. I see. So, you're asking me not to visit? He didn't answer right away. That silence said everything. Then, finally, he whispered, just for a little while, until things settle down. I nodded slowly, pretending to understand, even though my chest ached like someone had reached inside and crushed my heart. I wanted to tell him, this house was your first home, Daniel. These hands washed your clothes, cooked your meals, wiped your tears. How did I become the stranger now? But I didn't say a word, because sometimes love means swallowing pain so your child doesn't see you break. He stood up to leave. At the door, he hugged me. A quick, polite hug, the kind you give to someone you're obligated to, not someone you love. When the door closed behind him, I stood there for a long time. The silence of the house felt deafening. For years, I had dreamed of hearing his laughter echo through these walls again. Now, all I could hear were his words, replaying like a cruel song. Please stop visiting so often. And in that moment, I realized, you can give someone your whole heart and still not be welcome in theirs. After Daniel left that day, the house felt different, emptier somehow, even though nothing had physically changed. His coffee mug still sat on the kitchen shelf, the one with the chipped handle he used every morning when he visited. His old childhood drawings still hung on the fridge, a stick-figure family holding hands beneath a crooked sun. But the air had lost its warmth. That night, I sat in the living room long after the lights were out, staring at the front door as if he might come back, knock, and say he'd changed his mind. He didn't. Days turned into weeks. Weeks blurred into months. The phone that once rang every evening went silent. The text that used to begin with, "Hey Mom, guess what?" stopped coming altogether. I told myself he was busy, that work, marriage, and life had simply taken over. But deep down, I knew. Sometimes, silence doesn't come from distance. It comes from choice. I started cooking smaller portions. The house no longer smelled like apple pie or roasted chicken, just detergent and loneliness. On Sundays, I'd pass by the market where we used to shop together. The vendors would ask, "Where's your boy these days?" And I'd smile politely and say, "Oh, he's doing well, working hard." Even though the truth was, I had no idea. Every night, I sat by the window, watching families walking hand in hand. Children laughing, mothers scolding gently, fathers carrying sleeping toddlers. And I wondered, did Daniel ever think of me when he saw scenes like that? Once, I tried calling him. The phone rang, but no one answered. I left a message, my voice trembling. "Hi, sweetheart, it's Mom. Just wanted to check if you're okay. I miss you." He didn't call back. So I stopped calling, stopped hoping, stopped waiting. I kept myself busy, knitting scarves I'd never wear, watering plants that didn't need it, rearranging shelves just to fill the silence. But no matter how much I distracted myself, his absence sat beside me like a shadow. Sometimes at night, I'd hear his laughter echo in my mind, the way he used to run into my room shouting, "Mom, I had a bad dream." And I'd hold him close, whispering, "You're safe, baby. Mommy's here." Now, I was the one having bad dreams. Only this time, no one came to comfort me.
The seasons changed.
The tree outside my window lost its leaves, grew new ones, and lost them again. But Daniel still didn't come. And that's when I understood something painful. Silence isn't empty. It's full of every word left unsaid, every hug never given, every memory replaying on loop in a mother's heart. It had been almost a year since Daniel stopped visiting. A year of silence. A year of pretending I was fine, of learning to live with the emptiness he left behind. Then one evening, just as I was locking up for the night, I heard a knock at the door. It was soft at first, hesitant, almost apologetic. For a second, I thought I was imagining it. But when I opened the door, there he was. My Daniel, standing in the same doorway where I'd watched him walk away. He looked different. Thinner, pale, eyes sunken and tired. The confident glow he once had was gone, replaced by a weariness I couldn't name. "Mom," he whispered, his voice trembling. And before I could even respond, his eyes filled with tears. I didn't ask any questions. I didn't need to. I just opened my arms, and my grown son collapsed into them like a little boy again. He cried against my shoulder, shaking, broken, whispering between sobs. "She left me, Mom. Sophie left me." Time seemed to stop. I felt my heart twist with both pain and relief. Pain for his heartbreak, relief that he had come home. I stroked his hair gently, whispering, "It's okay, baby. You're home now." We sat in silence for a long time. He finally spoke, his voice heavy. "She said I wasn't enough, that she deserved more. I tried so hard to make her happy, Mom. I thought if I gave her everything, she'd stay." My eyes burned, but I held the tears back, because in that moment, I wasn't the mother who'd been pushed away. I was the mother who had to hold her broken child together. I cooked him dinner, just like I used to. As the smell of warm soup filled the kitchen, he looked around and said softly, "It smells like home again." Those words nearly broke me. He told me everything that night, the fights, the cold looks, the way Sophie slowly distanced him from everyone who truly cared for him. And as he spoke, I realized something. I wasn't angry anymore. I had waited for this moment for so long, yet I didn't feel victory. I just felt love. Because a mother's heart doesn't seek revenge. It seeks healing. It forgives, even when it shouldn't. Before he went to bed, Daniel turned to me and whispered, "I'm sorry, Mom, for everything. For pushing you away." I touched his cheek and smiled through tears.
Sure.
"It's okay, sweetheart. A mother never keeps count." That night, as he slept in his old room, I stood by the door, the same door I once cried behind, and finally whispered the words I'd been waiting a whole year to say. "Welcome home, my son." If you're a parent listening to this right now, especially a mother, I want you to hear me carefully. There will come a time when your child grows up, builds their own world, and walks a path that doesn't include you at every step. And no matter how much you prepare for it, it will still hurt. Because the truth is, we spend our whole lives building theirs. We teach them to walk, and one day they walk away. We teach them to speak, and one day they stop calling. It's the cruel irony of motherhood. The better you do your job, the sooner you become unnecessary. For months, I blamed myself for what happened with Daniel. I asked myself over and over, was I too involved? Too protective? Did I make him feel suffocated? But as time passed, I realized love was never the mistake. It was the silence that followed it. You can give your children everything, your time, your years, your heart, but you cannot control the hearts they choose to give themselves to. Sometimes people will enter their lives and build walls where there used to be open doors. And you'll stand there, outside those walls, wondering what you did wrong. If you're in that place right now, standing outside your child's life, waiting for a call that never comes, I want you to know this. Don't let their distance destroy your peace. You did your part. You loved them the best way you knew how. The world has a strange way of teaching lessons. The same people who push us away often find their way back, not because we force them, but because life showed them what unconditional love really means. And when they do come back, don't hold grudges. Hold them. Because forgiveness is not weakness, it's strength wrapped in softness. I've learned that being a mother isn't about being needed every day. It's about being remembered when the world forgets them. It's about being the quiet place they can return to when everything else falls apart. So, to every parent listening, please don't let your heart harden. Love your children even from a distance. Pray for them, even in silence. Because one day they will understand. They will realize the nights you stayed awake worrying, the sacrifices you never mentioned, the pain you never showed. And when that day comes, they'll look at you not as the parent who interfered, but as the one who never stopped loving them. That's what true parenthood is. Loving without conditions, forgiving without reason, and standing firm even when your heart has been broken in half. If this story touched you, leave a comment and share your thoughts. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more real-life stories of love, betrayal, and strength.